ready to feel
the power.
This is MMA Power Hour with Colin, Crandall, and myself, Adam Roorda. This is Season 8, Episode 18. We've got some amazing guests tonight. Before we get into the guests, I want to go ahead and give a huge shout out to our partner, Nesa's Hemp, who's been supplying both Colin and I with a little bit of CBD oil, some hemp oil that has amazing benefits. I swear by this. It makes me just energized and even keeled throughout the day, but also it's helping out with a lot of my other ailments, pains and a bunch of different things. And speaking of our partner, we have an amazing guest here tonight, Dr. Aliffe, coming in later. It's a pre-recorded segment, but definitely hear out what he has to say. It's actually a pretty awesome, especially considering everything with where the UFC has gone with their anti-doping and their thoughts with marijuana and CBD.
Absolutely. Let me extrapolate a little bit on that, Doctor. In the meantime, maybe you can send a message to our guest. I think he's maybe thinking that his spot is 10 minutes earlier than it is, and it's possible that was conveyed to him by none other than his promotion that he fights for. But maybe let him know that we've got about 5 minutes, and maybe we can get to him slightly early. Or a few minutes. Anyway,
we'll do it on time.
Yeah. Okay, so Dr. Aliffe, you guys, he is a really cool guy from my home state of Michigan, an independent researcher, not connected with Nesa's, but they reached out to him because he has one of the best reputations in the industry, having been doing research on this type of things, cannabinoids and things that are going to help reduce pain and make people's quality of life better. And he really has a lot of great things to say in general about the CBDA product. And the bottom line is he really isn't here to try to especially endorse anything. But, as Nesa's Hemp is our partner, we did verify from him that he does feel this is one of the very best, if not the best companies out there. And then he's going to speak about that with me. It's a really good chat. And there's a lot of MMA fighters and people that train hard, and just weekend warriors even that do jiu-jitsu, or people that do jiu-jitsu every other day that are finding a lot of assistance and not having to take narcotic painkillers, or even having to take the 4 or 6 Aleve every day, or IV, Advil or Tylenol. So definitely a really good segment worth your time. And then we have a couple of great celebrity guests as well to talk about fighting, and there's so much to talk about. Anyway, we're so glad to have you here. We see Adrian there. Hey, what's up, Adrian? From Facebook. What's up, Adrian? Always happy to talk to a Facebook friend and supporter, man. Big respect to you and appreciation. And then we have Singar, super kill. I appreciate it. We're going to try to kill it for you, Singar.
As always.
Absolutely. And so we're really excited to do a great show for you, and a lot of great talk, entertainment, and the Dr. Adam Roorda and Colin Crandall wacky personality duo that we have here.
We try to be not too wacky, but we tend to be sometimes. And on that note, actually, we made a wacky call the other day that happened to be we're probably probably the only show out there. I called a parlay on Poirier,
Chandler and the third co-main, or second co-main, Calderwood. Yeah, that was amazing. We were both very strong on all three of those fighters. We had picked them in our picks previously. We picked them in our picks officially. I picked them on Facebook, and then you mentioned on the show talking about a parlay. That parlay was your idea.
Just so confident in it, and
then I backed you up right there, saying, yeah, that would be what we would want to go for. That would be a hell of a money making parlay. I wish I would have put money on that parlay, but yeah, we were one of the few shows that did call Dustin Poirier over McGregor, Michael Chandler over Hooker, and then several other shows did join Calderwood, but it was kind of an even money proposition, and we called her. So MMA Power Hour killing it, not afraid to put our necks out there on the chopping block and look stupid if our picks had lost, and they very well could have. Those were even money fights. You know what? Chandler Hooker was even money. Poirier was not expected to win, as you guys know, except a lot of us did believe in him, and rightfully so. Although Adam and I are not bashing Connor as well. He did have not a lot of cage time over the last couple of years, no excuse, but he is a badass. But then, like I was saying, it's got to be hard when you have like $150 million in your bank account, and not only is your family set, but your kids' family and your grandkids' family and your cousins and whoever, it's got to be hard to find that same hunger that you had when nothing was set and when you were living in your parents' garage or sleeping on the floor with your girlfriend or whatever. And so, you know, kudos for Connor to want to keep doing it, because he sure as heck doesn't have to, does he?
No. I mean, dude has done so much for the sport, and you know, there's no disrespect meant, but he wasn't going to pull it off against Poirier.
No.
I knew it was that way, and then you know, I had to make that call.
Yep, without a doubt. And speaking of calls,
we got a couple minutes. He knows.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, it was a very good card. Some interesting fights. I think there was one robbery. Khalil Roundtree was robbed, in my opinion. Fairly close fight, but I think he absolutely did enough to win. Our guests, I want to give credit to one of our guests from a week or so before, rather a week or so ago, Matt the Steamroller Frivola. He was supposed to fight a man who hadn't really shown much grappling and wasn't a grappler, was a striker, Otman Azatar. Azatar, as most of you know, did one of the most bizarre things ever to be cut from the UFC at 13-0. The last guy I remember cut while on a win streak was Josh Koscheck after losing to not Josh Koscheck, Paul Daly, after losing to Josh Koscheck, walking around the referee, I think who was Big John McCarthy, and punching Koscheck or trying to hit him in the head, and then he was cut and banned forever. And then this was having to do with them cutting the wristbands off and giving it to some guys who are not authorized to be in the bubble. And
that's just plain stupid.
It's crazy. It's also you're trying to recreate like a Chuck Norris ninja movie or something like that, and doing it in a pandemic where it's a whole bunch of, you know, VIPs and people that are supposed to be secured, and letting some people who weren't secured try to go in there and for whatever reason drop off a bag to Otman Azatar.
It was a bag of cash, you know it.
Yeah, it probably had to be. And but in any case, what I want to say is our guy Matt Frivola, I think, had been offered his win money and show money. And but they also said, or we could have you fight this guy Sarukian, who is a really good grappler and a striker and just an amazing beast of a fighter. And our guy could have easily said, no, I'm not doing that on 1 day notice. And probably a lot of fighters would have chose the option, saying, no, I'm not making that switch. I'm prepared for a striker. Now you're going to bring me this guy that's just as good, if not a better grappler than me. And you know, no. But Frivola said, hell, bring it, man. Bring whoever it is you want to bring. I'm fighting. And he did fight competitively.
I mean, he fought competitively. Major props to him for taking that fight.
Big respect to Matt. And then he showed his true colors that he will fight anyone, anywhere, anytime, on any notice. So big respect for him there. Sarah McMahon.
He's on the come up. Even after that, I think that really got him the notoriety that he needs to build a fan base.
Without a doubt.
You know, he's a warrior for sure.
He is. Look for Matt Frivola to win his next fight. I can't wait to see it. Our guest Sarah McMahon did win the first round, but ended up getting subbed, I think, in the second. You know, still big respect for her.
Yeah.
She's an amazing fighter at 40 years old, showing that she can still jump in there and mix it up and be really competitive with the youngsters, her opponent being 9 years younger than her. Anyway, now I think we are getting very close to wanting to call our guest. And
we're getting there. We're about a minute away.
So other fights that were interesting, there was who was the other women's fight on the card? I wonder why I'm drawing.
Joanne Calderwood, right?
Well, there was Calderwood. There was three, I think, on the card. There was Calderwood. There was the McMahon. Oh, yes. Marina Rodriguez. I know I called that. I know that.
I went the opposite on the show. He
went with Hebus. Yeah, most people felt Hebus was going to win. I was influenced by our correspondent, Francesca Dominique, who really knows her stuff, and she loved Marina Rodriguez. And I started thinking, that girl is a badass. One thing I did feel right away was that fight shouldn't have been 3-1 favorite Hebus. I said that's not giving Marina Rodriguez any respect. I wasn't 100% confident that Marina would win, like I think Francesca was, but I said, you know what, it's a good bet, and I put a little bit of money on.
You convinced me last week to actually do it.
Last second to go to Rodriguez, yeah.
I turned around, changed my mind, went with Rodriguez, and
she did it, man.
It was a money earning week for me.
Absolutely.
I'm not condoning betting out there for you guys. Gambling, where to your own, to each their own. And
it's got to be money that you can afford to lose. And I know most people say, well, I can't afford to lose anything. But if you can't afford to lose anything, don't bet.
Yeah.
If you've got $50 that it would hurt you if you lost, but you can still pay your bills, then if you want to go ahead and do it, but not pushing it, because the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is not there for most people when gambling. So that's a fact. It's a pot of something, but not gold. Anyway, so I think we are at that time.
Yeah, we sure are.
We'll get ready to rock. Let's do it. Skype dance.
Interesting. Skype dance.
Looks like, there was
he's not picking up. He's online though.
Okay,
this happens occasionally.
All right, so yeah, while you're doing that, let me see what our guys are saying here. Alabaster is saying, "Hey, how you doing, Alabaster?" And then we've got 1777 memorabilia. Thoughts on MMA and WWE, and also with stiff matches. LOL. And then loved Poirier beating the Big Mouth. That says Rick Brooks. Memorabilia, it's a work. They will fight a trilogy. So it's interesting. They might fight a trilogy. I sure don't think it was a work. I don't think Conor was going to throw a fight and end up getting beaten down like that, although you never know. I can't say you're 100% wrong, although our friend 1777 memorabilia, who says it was a work, a setup or a rematch, and then McGregor will win. You never know, man. It is possible. Off of that performance, I wouldn't think so.
We're going to go into it. Here he is.
There he is. Hey, Brandon, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How are we doing?
Doing very well. How about yourself?
Cannot complain. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, let me adjust volumes on mine.
Not a problem. Not a problem. I'll keep talking so you can hear how it sounds, and then when you have a chance, if you could hit that video button, it looks like there we go. Perfect. We got you there. So we are live. Let me give you a proper introduction, ladies. All right, ladies and gentlemen, super excited to have this next guest on the show. Been a fan of his for many, many years, probably since shortly after he started his career in 2002. The man has been a top contender and or champion wherever he has fought, and we're so happy to have our first chance here to speak with the man they call the Truth, Brandon Vera. Welcome to the show, Brandon.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me. Thanks for getting back to me. I appreciate it. Sorry.
Not a problem. It's my pleasure, man. Good morning to you. I know you're on a different time zone than us. And speaking of which, man, you have spent a lot of time in different places. I know that you lived, I think, in California for a while, and you're spending some time in the Philippines and maybe some time in Singapore. Are you going back and forth between places, or what do you call home nowadays, if there is one place?
I would say home is the world.
Yep.
And we just kind of are vagabond travelers working throughout it.
I like that.
We have a couple home bases. We have base 1 in Guam, base 2 in the Philippines, and all the different families' houses that are bases in the mainland U.S. So we're just traveling and living a very blessed life, traveling, training, teaching seminars, speaking at different engagements, doing endorsement deals, endorsement shoots, getting to do commercials. Like we're definitely blessed. We're definitely blessed. So I can't complain, and it's not an easy life. Like it sounds like IG hashtagable.
Right.
What you don't see is everything goes into it. The travel hours, the missed flights, the connecting flights, the waiting, the no food, the food, But
yep.
You know what, man? I would never in a million years, an infinite number of years, ever trade what I do for anything else.
Absolutely. And that's really important, man, having that great attitude. And I think you always had that, and that's what really makes life better, when you appreciate what you have. I thought of something that I probably wasn't the first person to think of, the saying, but I remember thinking of something years ago that appreciate what you have, because if not, you could and probably will soon have less.
Absolutely correct.
Yep.
Be thankful for what you got.
Yep. So let me ask you, Brandon, you're the heavyweight champion over at One Championship. We were on a great conference call today. Super excited to see something that was scheduled last year, but the pandemic ended up interfering with it. But we are going to see, right, One Championship on U.S. television live, TNT, Turner Network Television. Ted Turner does it again. Yep. And it's going to be awesome Wednesday night. There's no other combat sport that has Wednesday shows. And so this is going to be great. It sounds like you're really excited. And I bet you are, because I really think there's got to be an audience here in the USA above the one that already knows about it that'll be excited about one championship. I'm sure you'd agree.
I agree with you 1,000%. You know, it is, one championship is a different animal. It's just different. I think Eddie Alvarez said it best when he came over. He said, Mr. Alvarez said that, you know, the U.S. is ahead and the rest of the world is ahead in jiu-jitsu and the U.S. is ahead in wrestling. He said, but the striking art, the striking aspect of one championship is a whole different animal that he's never seen before. And when he said that, man, it made me smile, because in all honesty, in this game of pugilism and combat of seeing who's better than the other that day, the fans want to find out in the center of that circle who's better. And the favorite, the fan favorite, is always the KO. They always want to see the knockout.
Yep.
That's what one championship brings by default. People in Asia don't play around. They're not trying to be famous, not trying to buy yachts, not trying to buy planes, trying to eat, trying to build a legacy for their family to be proud of. There's a different mentality, and it shows in the combatants and the athletes. So I'm very excited that the U.S. finally gets to see it live.
Absolutely. I am too. And I'm a lifelong martial artist, and everyone that knows that martial arts is something that started in the Far East, and the culture, even though we've enjoyed it ever since Bruce Lee started turning us on to it in the 1960s, right? Asia, 100 years before that, 200 years before that, people were martial artists and knew what it meant. In fact, I remember, funny enough, man, I'm sure you've seen it, you know, I think you're a student of the game. There are very few Bruce Lee interviews out there, and I'm sure you've seen the one with that kind of older Canadian guy with gray hair, right? Talking to him. It was like a 40-minute or 30-minute interview. And I remember, and it was like 1972, and I remember when the guy asked this question honestly after Bruce had said something about martial arts. He said, "What exactly is martial arts?" Right? And if you and if you really think about it, now someone who's really young will laugh, look at that and say, well, how could that old guy have been so stupid? Well, it really wasn't that stupid, right? In 1972, in North America, I would say, what would you say? Maybe 80% of people didn't know what martial arts meant or was?
More than that, yeah.
Yeah, maybe 90, yeah.
More than that.
Yeah, you know, right? And so, you know, and Bruce was very respectful and explained it to him in a great way that Bruce Lee always did. But yeah, in the East, people have known what martial arts meant for many, many, many years, several centuries. And so, yeah, it really is the home of striking and martial arts and technique. And, you know, one of the interesting things about the fighters that you guys have over at One Championship is you guys have fighters from so many countries. There's like countries that many people have never even heard of. That's where you guys have fighters over there from. And it's like, what the heck? I would never heard of that. I mean, even, you know, I mean, like, it's just a great diversity and variety of fighters, and they're so hungry, and they have such a tradition. I know today in the global media conference call, Demetrius Johnson, Mighty Mouse, said that, right, the guy who he's fighting coming up for the title has been a martial artist, I think, since he was like, you know, longer than him, since he was like 5 years old. And I think that that's something that you'll find in a lot of the fighters over there. They've been martial artists pretty much all their life. I think probably like yourself.
Yeah, right when they can walk, they start training.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's definitely a dedicated group in a different scene. And I like the fact that you guys have the women fighters as well. Then you also have Muay Thai, and you also have kickboxing.
All gloves.
With no gloves?
Small gloves.
Oh, small gloves, right, exactly. Oh, that's not, yeah, absolutely. You know what, man? I know that One Championship isn't doing this, but let me ask you, what do you think about that crazy sport over in Burma? The one, what's it called? The World Lethway. Yeah. What do you think about that, man? Is that a crazy thing? Is that a good thing? Is that something that you would ever say if someone said, "Hey, Brandon, I got a chance to make some money over at World Lethway"? Would you say, "Dude, you got to be out of your mind," or would you say, "Hey, this could be an interesting option"?
You know, I think that Lethway is an amazing animal, but I don't think that it would be for the consumer combat sports market. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Especially for the money that those guys, for what those guys do not get paid for what those guys do.
No.
I don't care. The top earner doesn't get paid for what he's doing.
Yeah. You know,
if for some reason Lethway started paying athletes like a ridiculous livable wage, I would say, you know, that would be cool to try out. Are you kidding me? That's new to me.
Yeah.
That's definitely something not for the faint of heart.
No.
That's not a place where you go try to see if you're good at. When you go in there, you have to understand.
Yeah.
This is a different animal when you walk in that thing.
Absolutely. That's why when the former UFC fighter who was in The Ultimate Fighter, Seth Baczynski, I think it was, when he went over there like 2 years ago, man, either he's crazy or he has balls of steel, because he went over there and they put him against a guy who I think was a former champion who had like 20 fights and literally got the crap beaten out of him. But I guess you got to give the guy credit and respect for being willing to do that. That's a guy probably that doesn't understand the meaning of fear, as the old saying says.
Dude. Or maybe he didn't know what Lethway really was.
That could have been it. But yeah, that
was.
Yeah, but that I have a feeling also they'd probably never be able to get any television contracts in the United States to show that. And
that would be pay-per-view, like premium. But see, that's another problem that would be a problem for America, not the rest of the world. If you started showing Lethway on TV, the American kids start tying ropes around and start hurting each other.
Yeah.
They would start trying that. Yeah.
That is true. I could see it. Yeah, that'd be bad. Kids would look at that and walk over.
America,
yeah, I can see a kid walk over to his little sister and hit her in the head with an elbow or something like that. Yeah, that'd be a bad situation. But yeah, absolutely. Well, Brandon, let me ask you, man, you are doing well over there. You're fighting at heavyweight. I think you've had some fights at light heavyweight, but I think heavyweight is more your home there, or are you still feeling like you could go back and forth?
No, we're at heavyweight. I'm not cutting weight anymore. Unless there's a $5 million check attached to the light heavyweight, something.
Yep.
I'm not going to light heavyweight no more.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
No, thank you.
And that's one of the good things that I'm sure you'll agree, and this is something that actually I feel pretty strongly with. A lot of people don't know that even though the weight classes have the same names as American organizations, they're actually 10 pounds heavier. The reason being is that we have fighters that are pretty depleted and dehydrated. I'm sure you probably remember years back, even when you were younger, fighting at light heavyweight, you get up there and your lips are sticking together because you're so dehydrated. And right. Right, exactly. Like you're barely able to, to stand on the scale. And one really made a statement, I think, early on, in that they were just not going to mess with that. They were going to put in strict rules that if you tried to do that, you'd be disqualified because of the level of dehydration. So in reality, I think, and obviously there may be some people that are dehydrating to a certain point, but I would say a majority of your fighters they're just really not dehydrated at all, or if so, barely, to be able to make the fight. So everyone is really fighting at a weight that they have their full strength, aren't they?
Yes, sir. Every athlete is actually just competing at their competition, their walk-around weight. One championship a long time ago was discouraging athletes from doing the old school water weight cuts because, man, it's bad for your brain long term. It has damaging effects on all of your internal organs, and it's just not safe. So they adopted the hydration method, and I'm pretty sure this is the same method that the colleges in the United States are using for the wrestling programs, where when you weigh in, you have to give a urinalysis sample, give a urine sample.
Yep.
To be checked at the table before you're allowed on the scale. So you have to pass your hydration test before you weigh in. And that's unheard of in this sport, you know. And one championship started it in the realm of mixed martial arts, and I am very appreciative that they did. That's another reason why the level of talent and the level that the athletes can bring to the game that evening on the event night is because of the hydration test. They're not out there falling around,
right,
going hard one round and then tired second, third, fourth, fifth round. Nah, it's not like that. It's a different one.
Yeah, and that's very important, very, very important for the safety of the fighters. You know, for there's so many things I'm going to ask you because you've been in this game for so long, and you know up front and firsthand so many different experiences. But let me ask you, speaking about this, what does it actually feel like when you're in an MMA fight? And even though you got to drink and eat for 30 hours or 36 hours, you had just spent like an entire week dehydrating. And what does that feel like, man? It's got to be kind of an unpleasant, weird feeling. A lot of people probably will never know. What does that feel like?
Feels like, I would say, the closest I can come to describe for everyone to understand is like, have you ever fought someone in your dream? That's exactly what it feels like when you have to deplete your body.
Yeah.
And put everything back in it. That's exactly what your body feels like after the first round.
Gotcha.
It's like you're dreaming, fighting.
Like you're dreaming.
You're almost
right. Wow.
Yes, sir. You're punching, but it's not hard. It seems like you're moving, but it doesn't seem fast enough. It's just like a dream. It's like you're fighting in a dream and you can't win.
That's weird.
You're going uphill the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah. And not only that, but a lot of people don't know, some do, that if you're still having the effects of a hard long weight cut and dehydrated, that the synovial fluid in your brain is lower than it should be, and you actually are much more susceptible to being knocked down or knocked out with punches to the head. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't get. But what's the difference in feeling when you're totally hydrated and being punched in the head hard, and when you're not hydrated pretty much at all and being punched in the head? What's the difference in how that feels and how you react?
So basically, just being dehydrated, period, is bad for you, and it messes with your cognitive thinking process, along with everything else, plus your fast twitch muscles, which that you actually need. And I'm glad you brought this up, because being dehydrated as an athlete and then taking concussive blows to the head, that fluid in there, that barrier fluid in there between your brain and your skull, is what helps stop the impact, and it helps stop long-term scarring problems. And there's an athlete right now with a certain organization that's having problems because he's dealing with a lot of problems on his brain from scarring. And he was an athlete who cut a lot of weight and went to war for this company many, many times. So I'm hoping that company takes care of him, and I'm really hoping that that guy pulls through and does well. I know his wife's been taking care of him for a really long time already, and it's just getting harder. But
yeah,
what we're talking about right now is a very serious problem, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree, and it is something that is really, really important, man, because it's just the thought of someone giving their all, blood, sweat, and tears, and having to fight under difficult situations that are borderline dangerous, or I guess dangerous, but nevertheless, the bottom line is it's sad when someone ends up having terrible damage, and don't have the money to take care of themselves. Kind of like my thought is the same thing with veterans. I always hate to imagine that a veteran has to be sleeping in a tent or even living in the worst, crappiest apartment in the worst neighborhood after putting his or her life on the line. I think that shouldn't be the case.
Man, I just became an even bigger fan of you now.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Very, very mutual, man. Let me ask you, Brandon, you're welcome. So you have been a fighter in your 20s, your 30s, and now your 40s. I've got a question for you. I believe that the amount of experience and the mindset absolutely makes a difference. Now, obviously, if you were to look at age 25 compared to someone who's older than you, say like 47 or 8, probably the mindset of the older fighter can help, but he's probably not necessarily going to be the 25-year-old version of himself, especially if he was well trained or you know, really a top of the line guy, although it's possible. But even that stated, what are some of the things that changed for you as far as your attitude, how you trained, and just what kind of a fighter you were, let's say between age 20, let's say 25 you started, you were 25 as a pro. Let's say your first 3 years as a pro, and then let's say 10 years after that, and then, you know, whatever, 7, 8 years after that right now. What are some of the differences that we saw in Brandon Vera at those different ages?
So I think for me, for everybody, the biggest difference from the beginning of this to even today is the training, from techniques to coaching styles, and science that is being used. When you first started, you would go 30 rounds, 5 minutes, beat the hell out of each other, and whoever survives at the end of the day is the winner.
Right.
Hey, tomorrow you do the same thing. You just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And you would just switch. One day would be boxing, one day would be wrestling, one day would be kickboxing, one day would be Muay Thai with no elbows. You know, that's how it was back in the day. You know, just a bunch of tough guys trying to get good, watching videos and just drilling stuff.
For sure.
Move forward a little bit more. I would be competing with wild, reckless abandon. No game plan. You know, I really didn't have a game plan except for hurting the person in front of me. Like, right. My game plan when I first started competing was, if you hit me, I have to hit you back twice. Right. And harder. Right. That's old school Muay Thai. You know, that was my game plan back in the day.
Yep.
Learning combinations so that I didn't have to think about them. They could just happen normally. Fast forward 10 years, we'll say I'm in the midst of my career. You know, life is happening. Everything from personal problems to financial problems to me being a lazy ass, not training, falling off and kind of not caring anymore, to having to find myself, showing up to practice, I would say 3 days a week instead of 5 or 6. Fast forward to now, I'm on the Aerodyne every other day with nobody even telling me to be. Nice. I'm doing bad work. I'm doing bad work on my own. Mm-hmm. Just drills that I know I need to be doing. We only go hard for 25 to 30 minutes of work time. Mm-hmm. Each training session. So if the training session is an hour and a half, 1 hour to hour and a half, let's say 15 minutes is warm up, 30 minutes is drilling. Another 30 minutes or 25 minutes to 30 minutes is hard work. And even at 30 minutes, it's only 25 minutes. Is that right? Yeah, yep. 30 minutes is only 25 minutes. So, because I get 1 minute break. So we're maximizing the time spent when everything has to be focused, and then we're just sharpening the sword the rest of the time.
Makes
and
sense.
I'll train 2 or 3 times a day. Not during camp. I'm sorry, only during camp. Not camp. I'll probably train once or twice a day.
Gotcha. Very cool. So just training smarter and having a game plan, you know, is a big difference. Yeah.
Have a game plan now.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a fight scheduled yet here in 2021? Or if not, I imagine you're hoping for one very soon.
I do have a fight scheduled here, 2021.
Can you tell us, or is it still under wraps?
I cannot tell you because I just signed the contract.
Okay.
Before we got on the call, I actually just signed it and sent it back. So
okay. Well, we'll
wait for them, but yes.
Say again. I'm sorry.
We have to wait for them to announce or give me the go-ahead to announce, but yes, sir. Yes,
absolutely.
Sir. 2021.
Sounds great. Well, we're excited to see you. Well, we've got about 4 minutes left with you, Brandon, and I've still got a few different questions, so let me throw you some rapid-fire questions. I appreciate it. You can give me some quick answers. The first one is, I think for quite a while you were training at Alliance, and I think you were one of the original guys at Alliance in San Diego, weren't you?
That's my gym.
That's your gym. I thought so. I was going to say, you created that, huh?
Yes, sir. It was me a long time ago. I wanted a place where nobody would have any attitude. People would have to come in and just train. No politics, no BS. No, you're from this gym or you're from that camp. Man, just come train with us. Have a good time.
And you had so many great guys over there along with yourself, Dominic Cruz, Jeremy Stevens, I think Phil Davis. What are some of the other names of people that have been training at Alliance regularly, or at least have been there in and out for a while?
Everyone. Both Noguera brothers, Junior Dos Santos, Andre Gaval, Mike Chandler.
Nice.
Coach Neal. Dude, there's been so many guys coming in and out of there. One of the guys won $1 million tournament. He trains out of our gym.
Nice.
He's a 205. Emiliano, yeah.
Nice.
Man, it's just a lot of, it's like the who's who of what's what in MMA. So yeah, I am very proud to be part of Alliance Training Center. Yep. And you know, it goes through its conditions like any other gym, but one thing that's consistent, Alliance will always be there somewhere around the world, whether it be Philippines, Guam, or in the States. It's going to be somewhere in the world.
Yeah, without a doubt. I really think so. I think that in just a handful of prominent gyms that have really good people, I think you guys are in there with the likes of AKA and ATT and, you know.
So many things.
Yeah.
Man, the leg taker. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me, what were your favorite fights back in the day in your career? Did you have any opponents that you really enjoyed fighting? I mean, you fought some of the absolute legends like yourself. And what were real quick? What were a couple of your favorite fights? Who were a couple of your favorite guys to fight, or who were a couple of the guys that you fought that you have the most respect for overall?
Everyone that I've met in the center, I have the utmost respect for. That's including the guys that took steroids and the guys that cheated, you know, because even with that stuff, you have to make that long walk, and you have to understand that it's just going to be you inside there no matter what. So I respect everyone. My most favorite fights from back in the day, I would say, would be my Randy Couture and my Shogun Rua fight.
Yes.
Most recent favorite was definitely Ung La Ang Sa.
yeah, absolutely. Ung La. Now, if he wanted to come, that fight with Ung La was at light heavyweight, right?
Yeah.
Do you think you'd be able to tempt him to try to jump up to heavyweight and see what he could do against you?
Hey, George. No, you know, I don't know, because Mr. Ung La, he told me, he said he had to eat so much just to keep weight on.
Right.
To be anywhere near 205 or light heavyweight, you know?
Right.
So I don't know if he'll ever come up to heavyweight.
Yeah, that would be a huge eating binge. It might not be functional weight if he had that on. Yeah. Well, last thing, Brandon, what could you tell an upcoming fighter who may be in a position where he's maybe just turned pro, and let's say he's like 2-2, or he's 1-1, or even if he's 2-0, but he's having a hard time getting fights or making any money? What can you tell a guy who maybe wants to try to make this happen as a career, but right now isn't really getting a lot of big offers, isn't with a big gym that has, great, reputable coaches or big names in it, but wants to be somewhere. What advice can you give to a guy who feels like he wants to make this happen, but he's kind of struggling to be able to get where he feels he needs to be?
So my advice for everyone wanting to become mixed martial artist, become an amazing tier 1 class A level mixed martial artist. Your story, whatever it may be, is not original. You're not the only one with those problems. You're not the only one with a crazy girlfriend or crazy boyfriend. You're not the only one with la 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 la.
Yep.
We've all do it. Listen, we weren't famous. We didn't start with coaches who knew how to coach world-class athletes. We just wanted this more than anything else in our lives. No excuses could hold us back. No borders from any country or in the world internationally could stop us from going to go get it. And it sounds real cliche, but there's nothing I can do to fix your situation. Only you can fix your situation. If you want this bad enough, you have to figure it out. Yeah, it's impossible. Yeah, you're broke. Yeah, training sucks. Yeah, the girls hate you right now because you're always training her. Yeah, I know all the problems. I know everything you're going through. If you can't figure that out, there's no way you're ever going to become a tier 1 athlete. Just go ahead and stop. To those who have reaffirmed themselves, shown themselves steadfast, stay on this course, you're the one I'm going to be watching when I retire. Good luck on your journey. I love you guys, and thank you for the sacrifices that you're giving for our sport that we love so much. All right, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brandon Vera. Huge respect for you, my friend. Thank you so much for your time, man. It's been a pleasure. Can't wait to see you fight in 2021.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Take care. Great guy, Brandon Vera over at Alliance. I had a feeling, I think he was the one that created it. And what a legend in fighting, Dr. Adam Roorda. He's fought everyone who was anyone, and he was always competitive. If you look on his record, you see some of the biggest names in this sport, and he's still doing it, still a champion in his early 40s, at 43, actually. I guess it's kind of almost at the cusp of early mid-40s. And a lot of wisdom he has. For sure.
A ton of wisdom, and I wish it didn't sound like he was kind of underwater there, unfortunately, when you're doing a bunch of Skype sessions and overseas.
He's
in Manila.
Yep.
You work with what you get, right? But
yep.
that was a bunch of great tidbits given there, and I have to agree with him just in general. If you're seeking greatness, everybody has a problem or two or three or four, and it's nothing unique to anybody out there, and I like that little tidbit that he dropped there at the end. And thank you, Brandon, for coming on. I'm a huge fan, and I'm excited to watch you here on TNT now that we got the news that you're going to have a fight in 2021. We got the information, can start speculating, guys.
That's right. We start thinking who it might be, but
who and when. Absolutely.
But a great guy, and I trained Muay Thai a little bit, so I always appreciate the Muay Thai respect. So what a cop. And thank you, Brandon Vera. Big respect, brother.
And for everybody out there right now that's catching us on either YouTube or on Fight TV, anywhere, we love you guys. You guys mean the world to us. If you're not following us on social media already, make sure to go on over to at MMA Power Hour. Go to our pages, go to our Twitter, go to Instagram. Make sure to give us a follow, like, comment, share, help get the word out. That's what will help us with working kinks out with like the underwater problem that we were having a little bit ago. We'll be able to push through with all your guys' support, and we wouldn't be able to do it without Nesa's Hemp either. And speaking of Nesa's Hemp, Colin, I'm going to go ahead and bring us right into our pre-recorded segment that we have with Dr. Aliffe. Definitely stay tuned, guys. This is not an infomercial.
No.
It is 100% I would say in line with everything that's going on in UFC, opening doors up with
cannabinoids and
cannabinoids, cannabis, and THC, and being able to just go ahead and remove that from the playing field as far as restrictions.
No longer banned, and so you could get a lot of serious.
Still is on a state level, but this is very important, so that way you guys can understand the benefits and how it's not necessarily a PED, but it is definitely something that can help an athlete train and
recover, especially recover. Yeah.
That's the big thing, and the brain health too is a big thing, and I believe we had discussed this, but definitely stay tuned, check it out.
We'll be back. I'm super excited to have this next guest on the show. He has an extensive background in clinical pharmacology, organic chemistry, cancer research, as well as studies in anesthesia and pain management. We're so happy to welcome Dr. Karyemaitre Aliffe to the show. Welcome to the show, Doctor.
Thanks a lot. Glad to be here, guys.
So happy to talk to you about so many things, especially the fact that we have a partnership with Nesa's Hemp, and you have, as an independent and objective outside physician, not involved in the management or ownership of the company, they did bring you in to check in with what they're providing, the quality of their product, how safe it is, and how efficient it is. And that's something that really impressed me, because I think a lot of companies will bring in their own people to say how great this is, but they actually went not from within but from without to have you look at it. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on not only the Nesa's Hemp product, but just a little bit more on letting people know what we're looking at with this amazing CBDA product, because everyone's hearing about CBD, not that most people know really what it is that much as they should know, but CBDA is something a little bit different, and I love to hear a little bit from you about what the difference between CBD and CBDA is, and then what some of the really good properties that CBDA is offering.
Great. Yeah, thanks a lot, Colin. So, yeah, actually, I met the CEO of Nesa's Hemp when I gave a talk, actually back when I was working with Charlotte's Web, and I had given a lecture at the CBD Expo down in Southern California. And something about what I presented on the panel connected with her, because I didn't just agree with all the other people that were kind of toting the party line. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation when it comes to cannabis all across the spectrum, from hemp to marijuana. And I'm somebody who really loves the truth of nature and want people to understand that so they can make their own decisions, as opposed to being manipulated into making just kind of simple-minded consumer choices. So I'm glad to be here and to engage your audience from now into perpetuity, however long the internet exists.
Absolutely.
So CBDA and CBD. So a little bit of background. So hemp cannabis plants, all cannabis plants, produce what are called phytocannabinoids. And phytocannabinoids are a family of molecules that are produced specifically by cannabis, not by other plants, not in laboratories, just by the plant itself. So as in standard botanical medicine, that's what's called the biosynthetic pathway, or what the plant itself produces. The plant, as far as the cannabinoids, it only produces what are called acidic cannabinoids. Excuse me. And that's the difference between CBDA and CBD. CBDA, the A stands for acid, stands for acidic cannabinoid. It doesn't mean acid like it will burn your mouth, and it doesn't mean acid like it'll send you on some sort of a trip.
Right.
It just means that there's a little bit of couple of extra atoms that are there in the native molecule from the plant. And those atoms, are basically like when you breathe out and you breathe out CO2. Okay, so it's like you took CBD and stuck CO2 on it, off on the side like that. That's the difference at a molecular level between CBDA and CBD. Now, on the level of processing and understanding, so even though everybody talks about CBD and even THC, as I said, the plant itself only produces the acidic cannabinoids. It doesn't, the cannabis plant, not marijuana, not hemp, they do not produce THC. They do not produce CBD. And I know that may come as a shock to people, but those are byproducts that when plants are cut down, when they're killed, basically, and they are exposed to the air and excess heat and light, then this process called decarboxylation occurs where the CO2, like we have in our breath, pops off the molecule, and what you're left with is CBD and THC. And those two molecules have a slightly different spectrum of activity than the CBDA and the THCA.
Interesting.
And so those are called cannabinoids, and they are still valid. They are still natural compounds. They just don't come from the plant. They come from human processing or just the exposure of the plant to unfavorable circumstances, we could say. So as far as the medicine, as far as health benefits, CBDA has shown that it has basically the same spectrum of health benefits that CBD has, but often at a higher potency. So for instance, with anxiety and depression, studies have shown that CBDA has 1,000 times the affinity, the potency, for the target receptor site, which is, our clinical pharmacology part. But serotonin receptors, people have probably heard of SSRIs, the antidepressant drugs, like Ambien and Zoloft, and there's a bunch of them. So the target for those drugs is to keep the level of serotonin higher in the brain, okay? And depression tends to occur when we start to become depleted in serotonin. And so the endocannabinoid system, which is the part of the body that interacts with cannabinoids, is able to interact with CBDA at 1,000 times the affinity or the potency compared to CBD. So imagine if there's, somebody's taking 10 milligrams, which is kind of a standard dose of CBD per day. Well, with CBDA, they could take 10 micrograms.
Wow.
That means your little bottle, 1 ounce bottle, could potentially go 1,000 times further than the bottle that you have of just regular CBD oil. And a product like Nesa's hemp, you may be able to get it to last, let's say, 10 times longer, given shelf life and some other issues like that. But you could take a much reduced dose, 10 or 50 times reduced dose, and still have the effects that a person might be used to experiencing with CBD.
Excellent. I really appreciate that information, and that is one of the things that I think is really great about Nesa's hemp is the fact that they are pretty much exclusively using the CBDA. Now, I want to get on to a next subject as far as asking you a question, because it pertains to sports and combat sports really quickly. But before I do, just real quickly, are all Nesa's hemp CBDA, or are there some parts, or are there some products that are not CBDA?
Well, so what Nesa's hemp does is what's called cold extraction or low temperature extraction of raw, fresh hemp material that they've grown meticulously, organic conditions, and sometimes you could even go on the website. You can see photographs of Nesa, the CEO, holding the plants and hugging them and things like that. And some people may think that's silly, but people don't realize, and maybe a little later I'll have an opportunity to mention to you, that plants do respond to their environment, and what you get out of the plant, it depends on the environment that you place it in. It's not going to be the same just because you have the same seed. If you grow the same seed in different conditions, you get different results, just like with people.
Yeah.
So because she uses this low temperature extraction, the temperature is never raised so high that the CBDA is converted to CBD. Most, especially like large industrial CBD oil producers that white label, that sell to some of the major brands that people are familiar with, they engage in what's called a decarboxylation step intentionally. And often their extraction process is at a higher temperature, whether it's, using butane or hexane or CO2 supercritical extraction. The multiple different extraction processes tend to raise the temperature higher than what is this low temperature or cold extraction, where the temperature of the process generally does not go above human body temperature.
That makes sense.
So in that process, they convert the CBDA to CBD. The molecule gets degraded,
right,
and they lose that extra potency of the CBDA. And for people, especially in the sports space, whether professionally or just intensively on their own, a lot of people don't want unanticipated or unintentional exposure to THC. Some people can't accept it at all.
Right.
The decarboxylation that people more often call activation of the cannabinoids from CBDA to CBD also means that the THCA becomes THC, which is the molecule associated with the human intoxication and the getting high.
Right, the hallucinogenic effect, which is what we don't really want and what Nesa's really isn't focusing on. And it's good to hear that they are maintaining the CBDA as their their product, and that's really important. Sorry if I interrupted your flow, doctor, but
I'm
go ahead.
just going to mention one thing.
Yeah.
That I'm not against the intoxication part of it at all. It's just that I believe that people that don't want it deserve to have their space, and some people want both, and so they deserve to be able to choose. You deserve to be able to have water and then whiskey. You don't want your water to be mixed with whiskey all the time. And every time you have a drink of water to rehydrate, you're also having the experience of intoxicating. So that's what the CBD oils are doing. And even though it's only 0.3% THC as the maximum level in hemp oil, CBD oil, in order to qualify as hemp and CBD and not medical marijuana, at that 0.3% level in a 1 ounce bottle, 30 mLs, that can be as much as 90 milligrams of THC, which is enough to get 4 or 5 people high.
Right.
Maybe not Snoop Dogg.
Right.
But 4 or 5 of us here in the room.
Absolutely. That makes sense. And that's good to know. And I personally am not against any hallucinogenic effects either. But I know that when we're talking about for medicinal purposes, for athletes and people wanting to heal and have recover, they're not really needing that. And that leads me into the next question I have for you. What can the CBDA and the Nesa's hemp product offer combat sports athletes who train extremely hard in various fighting styles and martial arts and who are taking punches and kicks to the head and body, as well as needing to be explosive and in great cardio condition and not having any product that's going to interfere with that? How can excuse me, how can the Nesa's hemp product with this high quality CBDA help people like that and not interfere or harm their training and the great conditioning that they need to be able to achieve and maintain?
Okay, so that's a big question. And cut me off if I go too far down into the rabbit hole. I'm not going to say off into the weeds because that has a different meaning given this conversation.
Yep, that's right. Absolutely. Will do. I appreciate it.
So the body, there is kind of like the everyday hang out and go to Starbucks and hang out with your friend's body. There is the intense optimal performance version of our body. And then there is, like, at the other extreme, depressed because of, global shutdown because of COVID or whatever other reason, PTSD, kind of minimally functional version. One of the things, I trained in anesthesia and intensive care and pain management, as you mentioned. And one of the things that is evident when you treat thousands of patients with anesthetics, which are psychotropic drugs, right? It's basically psychotropic medicine, is that inside of every person, there's like 10 or 12 personalities. And even the most aggressive, Navy SEAL captain or something has this other side that nobody's ever seen, that, a particular drug, like say Diprovan, suddenly you see this other aspect of that person's personality that just generally doesn't come out. And of course, people that have been around people that use cocaine, and cocaine is actually also a valid anesthetic drug, they often see another side of that person's personality that they don't see when that person has not used cocaine.
Correct.
So to recognize that the body, any individual body, has a broad spectrum of potentials, just like any smart device, like a smartphone or a smart tablet, has a broad spectrum of potentials all the way from the dark web to, you know, I don't know, the Disney Channel or something. It's able to engage all those environments and function. And, you know, the body really is a smart device. It's actually way smarter than what we call smart devices. We just tend to depend on machines more than ourselves. All of that said, the operating system of this smart device of the human body is what's called the endocannabinoid system, the physiologic system in the body that was discovered through research on cannabinoids like CBD and THC. And what has been found is that this system, the endocannabinoid system that's still being learned about, is as I said, is the major operating system, meaning that it's controlling all of these other systems and modulating all of these other systems in the body, everything from, you know, anti-cancer immunity and mood, depression, cognitive function, all the way down to sexual function, sexual performance. Okay, so that full spectrum. So really, that's why I say it's like an operating system. If the body is the smart device and the endocannabinoid system is the operating system, then things like sexual function are apps. You know, respiratory function, cardiac function, those are like little apps. And all those apps, in order to work on this smart device, they need that operating system in order to work. And if they're supposed to work together, you know, like right now we're using this, you know, video conferencing app, and it's depending on, you know, the microphone, the video, and the operating system is integrating all of that together so that the whole thing works. Okay?
Absolutely. Doctor, really quick, sorry. Yeah,
sure.
No problem. I definitely want to hear you continue with that answer, and I just want to let you know we've got about 5 minutes left. And so if you wanted to focus on that answer, and just to remind the viewing audience what we're wanting to find out from the doctor, and he's already started out with, and we'll let him continue, is how this can help hard training professional fighters who have to take a lot of punishment, what it can do for their recovery, how it won't interfere with their training or their cardio and conditioning, and then also stick in how it will help just general people, maybe that aren't fighters, but people that want to train hard physically. And then, yeah, if you could, I'll give you the entire last 5 minutes here to go over that, and then we'll do a quick
I got my timer rolling.
I appreciate it, Doctor.
To me, even regular people, as we call it, still need to be able to be resilient. And so we may be talking about MMA, but to me, life basically is a pugilist sport.
Yep.
Some of us train for it, some of us don't. And as Mike Tyson was famous for saying, you know, everybody thinks they have a plan until they get hit in the mouth.
Yep.
And most of us have gotten hit in the mouth at least once or twice this year in 2020. And the question is, you know, do you go down for the count? You know, do they carry you out on a stretcher? Or are you able to bounce back up, defend yourself, and maybe actually, you know, win the match? And so, you know, I started in this space in a presentation to the Association of Boxing Commissions, as I mentioned back when I was working with Charlotte's Web, and talking to them about traumatic brain injury and chronic traumatic encephalitis that comes from encephalopathy, that comes from the chronic mild to moderate brain injury that can occur in pugilist sports. But even short of that, what I was segueing my way to when I was talking about the endocannabinoid system is the endocannabinoid system is known as a harm reduction system that promotes homeostasis, which means it allows the body to maintain a certain range, optimal range, if you will, of function, regardless of the circumstances that you put it in. So regardless of whether you put it in a coffee shop or a boxing ring or, you know, a living room or a bedroom or whatever, it's still able to function with all of those different apps that the person wants to be able to manifest, not just one or the other.
Gotcha.
So these cannabinoids, which come from the cannabis plant, hemp cannabis plant, the acidic cannabinoids, how they can benefit people that have what I call high performance lifestyles. That covers everybody, whether they're professional, non-professional, whether they're an MMA fighter or Wall Street banker or somebody running for president. Any of those conditions, people are under stress. And interestingly, the plant kingdom and the human animal kingdom have evolved kind of in parallel, because plants endure stress too, the change of seasons, drought, fire, all these things. And often the wisdom of the plant in managing its own stress can help the human body. And that's where the benefit of cannabis comes from, that cannabis and humans have evolved basically in parallel, so that the stress management systems of cannabis, we're able to kind of steal their homework and, borrow their notes and use it in our own body, just like with antibiotics. We're borrowing the notes from, penicillin fungus or something. How did penicillin win the battle against bacteria? Okay, now we have, a tablet and we can win the battle against bacteria in our own body. And so because of this, if you consider that, say, a way of thinking of it, and I've only got a minute and a half, oh gosh, all of us are constantly being hit by different sorts of punches, if you will, whether they're emotional or physical. Somebody who is engaging training constantly, as I mentioned at the American Boxing Federation, anybody who is engaged in a contact sport, and especially in a pugilist sport, I would recommend to them to take a hemp extract, ideally a raw hemp extract like Nesa's hemp, all the time. Every time they train, the body is taking hits. The endocannabinoid system is there to support us through the tissue repair, the inflammation, the pain management, and also the cognitive, mental, mood management. Like after somebody gets clocked and they get knocked out, whether it's a football field or a boxing ring, MMA ring, you want that person to be able to come back either the next round or the next fight, just like they did when they'd never been knocked down, just like they did when they were champion or dreaming of being champion. And that's part of what these cannabinoids do for us. It helps us to reset the brain and to reset what's really the mind-body connection. The endocannabinoid system is that mind-body connection and allows us to root ourselves in the optimal space that we want to live and function and perform in, as opposed to getting taken down by the body blows that life deals us, or sometimes an opponent deals to us.
Absolutely well stated. A lot of great information, and that's really good to know as well. I'm definitely older than any professional athlete would be, so I'm not that, but I do still train hard.
Except Mike Tyson.
Except, right, you're right, with Mike and Roy, we're in there, right? So I don't feel as old. But absolutely, this is some really great information. It's something that's really important. And I think Nesa's Hemp is really doing it the right way. Also, I want to let people know that as well as making this presentation that Dr. Aliffe did to an international boxing organization, the doctor has also spent several years studying at both Harvard and Stanford. So we're not talking about a man who somehow no one can find any information on as far as his research studies or his education. So we have someone that's as legit as you can get in Dr. Karyemaitre Aliffe. And so this is really,
Thank you. You can check me out on LinkedIn.
You got it, and that's the deal. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate it so much, Doctor. Having you on here was a treat. We'll have to do it again sometime, and I'm really gonna keep on embracing my Nesa's Hemp product, because it's I can already see the results, and from what you're saying, it's definitely as legit can get. And thank you so much, my friend, for taking the time out of your schedule to come on and let us know about what this really important CBD is and what it does and how it can benefit our hard training, both professional and weekend warrior combat sport athletes.
Yeah, most definitely. CBDA is the future of CBD oils, and the approach that Nesa's Hemp is taking with their low temperature extraction of fresh plants and rapid bottling to preserve the natural essence of the native plant, that's the way to go. Nature has the wisdom, and all we have to do is honor it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Karyemaitre Aliffe. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure here. Thanks. Look forward to talking to you guys again.
Welcome back. Hope you guys enjoyed that interview. Really good guy, Dr. Aliffe. Very knowledgeable, very sincere. And it was really interesting getting all that knowledge, and really without too much personal opinion, just all science. And that's what I want to hear when it comes to these sort of products.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Everybody, make sure to go on over to mmaph.nesashemp.com where you can get yourself a bottle of hemp oil to try it out. There is going to be a protein powder coming out soon that has the CBDA in it as well. So keep an eye out. Make sure MMAPH, that's just MMA and then PH for Power Hour, .nesashemp.com. You can get yourself an amazing discount. Speaking of discounts, we can also get you a little bit of a discount by going over to Mocha Tribe via mymochatribe.com. Get yourself some premium coffee, and in the discount code, go ahead and put in MMA10. It'll get you 10% off. And I've really got to say thank you guys for doing that, and also purchasing via mmaph.nesashemp.com, because all proceeds go to help the show. It helps us make improvements here. It's not just in Colin's and my pockets. I wish I could say we're to the point where we're doing that, but we're not. It all goes to supporting the show and also supporting all of our writers. We've got a huge staff. We're recruiting a bunch of people, getting hit up with a bunch of messages right now too. Going to be interviewing a lot of them, and it does cost money. And right now it's pretty much coming out of it's not just pretty much, it is coming out of Colin's pockets and my pockets, and we're making sure to get everybody paid. So
yep, that's very important, and we take it really seriously. So yeah, if you guys buy these good products, they are really good. We checked them out ourselves, and we've used them, and we still do. It'll be worth your while, and it'll help support this great show continue and be able to survive. No one's getting rich here, and it wouldn't make us rich unless millions of you guys did it. But any of these products that we're talking about would be worth your while and would help support the show. So we really appreciate it if you do check it out. And thank you so much again, Dr. Aliffe. You're a great guy, another Michigan guy like myself. Always love the fellow Michiganders. And for those of you who didn't know, that's my background in Michigan. Dr. Adam Roorda is an Iowa guy who also lived for a while in Missouri. So Midwest Power is what we got here. The MMA Power Hour. Midwest Power coming at you, baby.
Oh, Midwest Power. I guess we can call it that.
Yep, it's the best. So, at least most of the time it is. So, Dr. Adam,
except for when it's out from the storms.
That's true. When there's storms and crappy weather, everyone hates it in the Midwest. But, I don't know. I think some people...
I miss that snow.
Yeah, I do kind of too. I remember back in those days when I was there, my body was so efficient that it would heat up. As long as I had even a medium thick jacket on, no matter how cold it was, like my body would just start heating it up. And now I'm sitting here, maybe because of age or whatever, but in California, I'm out there walking around the cold, waiting for my body to start heating up. And I'm like, what the hell's wrong? Did someone turn my furnace down to low or something? I don't know. But maybe it's just being out of the cold weather so long. A lot of you don't know, though, that it does get pretty darn cold sometimes in Southern California. Now, I know not compared to the Midwest or the East, we're never really getting 0 degrees and rarely getting below the 32 degree freezing weather. However, unlike our good friends in Hawaii and Florida, where they're not normally seeing under 60 or the high 50s, we with frequency will see the 40s at night, and sometimes the low 40s even, and there will sometimes be
snowed in the valley.
And the valley,
this week.
Santa Clarita, where was it? No,
it actually snowed. I was outside and it snowed on me. Yeah, and nobody believed me when I stepped inside. Crazy. It lasted for about 30 seconds, but it did snow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I know in Iowa, nobody, or Michigan, nobody would call it snow, but it snowed.
Right, it was a light snow, which is definitely serious.
I saw one giant flake plop down and stick to the ground for about 3 seconds, and I was like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It brought me back to I do love the cold weather just because that was wrestling season for me growing up, and it was also great for fighting. Really, honestly, when I was fighting my smokers, I would step outside right afterwards and not feel anything because my face would just freeze.
I bet.
And it was just like putting an ice pack on, and instead of having to put an ice pack on, all I had to do was step outside.
Yeah. I remember the fun of being able to talk and smoke came out of your mouth. I remember as kids we'd be talking or going like and watch the steam come out of our mouth, so that was something those of you who haven't lived in cold climates don't know about and the rest do, then jumping in the snow and making those snow angels always.
That is something that we do get here in California, for those of you that aren't from here. But Colin, I want to give a huge shout out to everybody that is tuned in here on all of our platforms that are not Fight TV. Thank you so much. Also, make sure to go on over to Fight TV. It's FITE.tv, and you can subscribe to our channel over there for all the times that you go on over. Make sure to follow us, subscribe, get the updates on all of the shows every week, so that way you have a reminder coming directly to your phone.
Absolutely, definitely, please do. Also want to thank our longtime supporter, my good friend Marcus23. Chandler is going to fit in very well, it does look like, and we always knew that. And thank God Fedor is out of the hospital having COVID issues, and he's out of the hospital, one of the greatest of all time. Fedor, pronounced normal, his name in Russian pronounced Fyodor Emelianenko, always like that. My mom was a university English professor, and even though I don't have as good diction and pronunciation as her, I do take it seriously. So Fyodor Emelianenko, one of the all-time greats. Big fan of his. They call him Fedor, and I know he was always okay with that. Also, our one of our friends, fans jumping into the show to contribute, 1777 memorabilia, mentioning that the McGregor and Poirier fight possibly a work, and then also he figured it was a work when Rousey was winning all those too much as well. You never know. All respect to your brother. I would sure think that Dana White probably wouldn't be too receptive to hearing that, but there have been worked fights in MMA. It's unfortunate.
You can't say they've never happened, but
right. But at a high level, I would hope and think not. I think Ronda just had a lot of girls' number at that time, and was able to win just with her really high level grappling. If you're an elite athlete, it really does make a difference. I think. At some point maybe it won't, but I think now if you're just so good at one skill set and you're still in your prime, you're not necessarily going to be champion in the UFC, but you'll be able to beat some people if you can get it into your wheelhouse. So, I think that Ronda did that. I've been having some allergies here. Sorry, I'm like breathing out of my mouth and sniffing alternately. I'll try to do whichever is least noisy. But anyway,
start calling you Donald Trump or Hunter Biden or something.
That's right. Yeah, and both are Anyway,
well, one of them smokes it, the other one takes it up the nose. So whatever.
That's it. As Dr. Adam Roorda says, but I can also say some controversial things, but those I'll leave to the doc on those. But they're both weird guys.
It's documented for both of them. So.
It is documented, so we're not doxing here. I'm
hitting both sides of the aisle in one strike here. So
exactly. What is it when someone says they're doxing? What is that about? That's supposed to be.
So that's putting personal information out online. Okay. So like addresses or any personal information, really.
Do you know, here's something you guys may not know, that I think in the United States and probably many other countries up until like the 1960s, if someone was on television or if someone reported some crime or was a crime victim or sometimes even a criminal, when the newspaper would report about the incident, they would put the home address of the people involved. And can you imagine how bizarre that was? Like, I mean, whether you were a victim or a criminal or had just won a lottery or had something weird go on, when the article was written about this big news, they would tell everyone reading the newspaper your full name and your address. Can you just imagine how much weird crap had to have happened because of that? Like, I mean, what would have happened? They put someone won a lottery, and all of a sudden the next day a whole bunch of people show up and say, hey, you won the lottery, dude. Look, I live across the street from you. I've always said hello. I need like at least $500. You come on, you have $5 million. I mean, just the weirdness must have been amazing. And I think at some point, I don't know if it was a law or at some point something was created that said absolutely never do that again. But for many years,
it was just all about journalistic integrity after a while, and realizing that when you put stuff out, you got to look at it this way, Colin. Okay, so we run a news site, right? And if we put somebody in danger by putting their information out there online, their personal information, like their address, their place of work, where they're working out in a certain gym, very specifically the address, if they don't want to put it out, there's a reason for it.
Right.
And if somebody shows up and does some damage, you can be held liable.
Yeah.
So it's about liability laws and stuff tied in with that. So it doesn't surprise me that changed, but in the internet world,
being sued, that's probably what made it change. A bunch of
newspapers and media outlets.
Yeah.
And now in today's world, it's a little more difficult when it's an individual doing it, and it's on social media where it's kind of a public forum. There's so many different intricacies, and when I watch the MMA world, I don't see too much doxing. No. I've seen it a couple times. It's kind of weird when I see it, but the doxing is just it's a weird thing. It really is. I don't understand where people get off on it, but it is what it is. I guess people are going to do it and try to dox me and see what happens.
Exactly. No doxing. No. It's no
I also have an amazing skill set in computers, boys and girls, so don't do it, because I will strike back.
That's it. The Empire strikes back. Well, the Roorda strikes back. The
Roorda. I was raised a fighter. I wrestled from a very young age.
That's it.
I was in Taekwondo at a very young age.
That's right. And then the smokers
I've
MMA.
Continued fighting and inside and outside.
That's it.
Never an actual octagon. But
right. But in the smokers in a ring.
I am a fighter one way or another, so if you want to mess with me with some doxing, let's do it.
Exactly. Bring on the doxing. No, we don't want it really. But you know what? I just realized it would be Lion Fist Strikes Back. That's one of the doctor's longtime nicknames. Lion Fist Strikes Back. We might have to make a movie like that, Lion Fist Strikes Back. But speaking about movies, before we continue...
There is an animated series called Lion Fist, which is kind of why I retired the name.
That's right. I know, because you had it for a while. Some of those good Lion Fist live... those were. Can anyone access those if they wanted to see?
I mean, you could probably find them somewhere. I don't know.
It was only 2017, I believe, or did you come back once in 18 and do one?
I think I did.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It was a bunch of those. They were pretty interesting. I used to love to watch that because all of a sudden, I'd see you on there.
Oh, okay. So speaking of CBD, with an episode or interview earlier, sorry. So I really got smoked out before one of my episodes of Lion Fist Live, and I think it was actually the last one I did. But I got really smoked out because I was just really stressed.
Right,
so I went and smoked a joint, which turned into 2 joints, which turned into 3 because of how much stress I was dealing with.
Yeah.
And by the time it actually hit me was when I decided to go ahead and click go live.
Oh, no.
And I was going to talk about different government things, and I think this is the one that really sticks with a lot of people because I started getting into conspiracy theory shit. And I don't do this. Like Colin knows this about me. He and I have a lot of conversations. I'm like, be careful, use your brain right now. Let's use our brains. Everybody do that because we don't want to buy into all the conspiracy theories. They're out there like crazy on both the left and the right. Let's chill out. But in that episode of Lion Fist Live, I went all in.
Yep, because you were under the effect of the great herb and a large dose of the great herb.
Which tells me people need to stop smoking in 2021.
That's it, man. You got to take the CBD or CBDA or maybe a low amount of the THC. Although we're not here to tell you.
Don't go super high levels like I did with 3 joints, 4 joints
exactly.
in about an hour.
You don't want to do that. That's funny. I love that though. That's some funny stuff, man. You were pretty thin right back there too, man. I remember you come on there. Your hair would look shaggy. You were looking super skinny. And I thought, there's the doctor doing his great thing.
Over 50 pounds since then.
Yeah, you definitely filled out. Definitely put on some muscles and some size, which is a good thing.
I wouldn't say muscle. I see it when I take my shirt off. It's like, oh man, where'd that go?
A little bit of fat too. Yep, I know it. Believe me.
Soft.
I know, I can relate. You look good though.
I need to get in the gym with these fighters, Colin.
Yeah, I hear you. It would be a good thing. Anyway, speaking about fighters, I think we are ready for our next guest.
Oh, you know what? We are.
We are. Yep. We didn't even have
about 30 seconds early, but that's fine.
Yeah, let's do it. Maybe bring her file up on the shirt too. Give a chance. Not picking up. Let's see here.
Boom, boom, boom. Skype dance.
Skype dance, baby. But I have a feeling when it goes this long, although you never know, someone can pick up.
Sometimes they just need to call me. For some reason, my Skype doesn't always dial through. It's the weirdest,
that is
weirdest and strangest thing.
Let me see. That could be it. So, ladies and gentlemen, once in a while, it may just be that they're not picking up as much as the Skype when doing live streaming. Somehow may not be getting through. Let me check with her. Hey, Miranda, we're trying to Skype you for the interview. Are you there? Question mark.
And we're asking not because she's not there.
Right.
We're asking because she is there, and my Skype is just acting very funky.
Okay. If so, could you Skype call us? We may be having an issue with the live stream and Skyping you for some reason. Period.
Should work.
Let me see here.
Oh, Colin.
I tell you.
This is part of the entertainment. This is part of the entertainment. When you tune in, you get a little bit of Colin and Adam just letting loose and talking about, getting smoked out, 4 years ago now.
Right. Yep. You got to be freestyling. You'll catch us freestyling here a little bit, and ad-libbing, as they say, and improvising. There you go. We've used all the words that different people might like to use. Freestyling, ad-libbing, and whatever the hell I just said. Not freebasing. That I know we're not doing. But no mainlining, no freebasing.
You know what? No.
Improvising. There we go. Freestyling, ad-libbing, and improvising. That is what you'll get here sometimes. Hate to do it where I'm looking on the phone and you see the top of my head, although you do get to see when I'm having a pretty good hair day, which is not always possible for me. So, there's that. But I think that hopefully we will
any minute now have her in here. I did send a message saying that we're ready, so we'll see what happens.
Yep.
Colin, you know what? It's kind of a bummer that we had 3 fights in 2 weeks, and now we don't have a fight.
I know.
For a week and a half.
We're like
from now.
Everyone's feeling deprived of UFC fights, and we don't have any one championship fights. There's a couple of
I'm kind of bummed about one championship fights coming up on Wednesday nights.
That's right. They're going directly against us.
We'll have to change the nights.
Yeah, man. I think so, huh? Because
we're gonna have to start doing either Tuesdays or Thursdays. You guys let us know in the comments which day works best for you. If it's a Tuesday or a Thursday, because we'll switch it up. We've absolutely got to keep that open. For one
I have a thought, and sorry to interrupt you there, Doc, but I just realized the reason why one I think chose Wednesday, and I'll do this in reverse order, is UFCs are Saturday, Bellators are usually Friday, and PFL is usually Thursday.
So we have to do Tuesdays.
Tuesday, I think it is.
Tuesdays start off fight week for everybody.
Yeah.
All right, Tuesday it is. We'll be changing it up here shortly, so stay tuned on our social media to be able to get that figured out, because we're deciding this on the fly, but you got the 2 executives of the company, the 2 faces, and we're going to go ahead and make it happen on Tuesdays.
Tuesdays at 6.
Next week, still Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern. But
thereafter, we'll be going Tuesday. And that's going to be a slam dunk that there's no issue with fight, or do we really have to maybe check with them?
We'll have to check. It might take us a second to get it switched over. We'll be able to make it happen one of the evenings, but right now I can tell you that Wednesdays can't be with one championship.
No, we're not going to go directly against the one championship live 2-hour show with our 2-hour show. Not that we couldn't maybe hold our own, but it's still we support them just like we support the other organizations. And it doesn't make sense. It's just like back in the days when Bellator and UFC would sometimes go against each other.
I mean, we just said no to PFL, and one championship it's technically the largest organization in the world. So
it really is. So we don't want to go up against UFC, Bellator, PFL, or one championship as far as live programming. So we will be making it happen on Tuesday. You want to try Miranda again? Didn't hear anything right back from her, but I think you said you saw her on.
It says that she's on, but I don't really see any activity saying that she's actually fully on.
All right, let me see.
I'll try calling her in the background.
So Dr. Adam Roorda is going to try calling her.
And I'll have it on in the background.
In the background there, so I don't have to do my wild Skype dance, but
put it in there a little bit. You can kind of hear it.
I can hear it a little bit. You can hear a little bit of a.
You don't need Skype dance. You can do your thing.
Yeah, I'll do it. Okay, so what I'm looking at is the next fight card for the UFC is going to be February 6th, so the one before that, Doc. and it's going to be Overeem versus Volkov. Okay, Overeem versus Volkov, and that is the main event. Other fights on that card include Corey Sandhagen against Frankie Edgar, Colin England against Seung-Woo Choi, our friend Cody Stamen against Andre Ewell, our friend Benil Dariush against Diego Ferreira, Clay Guida, the Carpenter, the legend from Chicago, against Michael Johnson, our friend Macy Chesson against Marion Renault, Julio Arce against Timur Valiev, Lara Procopio against Meatball Molly McCann from England, Alex De Silva against our friend Devonte Smith, who was on our show a year or so ago, Danilo Marquez versus Mike Rodriguez, Alexander Pantoja, what a fighter, against Manel Cape or Cape, Dennis Bondar against Odie Osborne, and Jocelyn Edwards against the formidable Carol Rosa. While we wait for Miranda, let me just shoot her one last quick message. Hey Miranda, let us know when you're around. Would love to get the interview set as soon as possible. Period. We appreciate it. Period. All right, let me see here.
The text dictations.
Yeah, gotta love that.
You're one of the only people I know that actually does it that way.
Oh yeah, I tell you, it's just so easy to do. Get into the interview as soon as possible. All right, let me see. Okay, so let's start looking at those. Let's start looking at those fights here as soon as I finish this and looking the other way. Okay, here we go. So let's start down lower, but not with fights that not too many people know about. Well, hell with it. Jocelyn Edwards, I don't know that well. Carol Rosa is very tough. I just don't know enough about either one of them to really speak educatedly, if that's a word, educated in an educated fashion. How about? But Carol Rosa is tough. She's a 1.5 to 1 favorite. I've heard great things about her. If forced, I would pick her, but let's not spend too much time on that. Doc, I don't think you have much knowledge of either of those, so I don't know if you want to just skip it. Odie Osborne, also a slight favorite against Dennis Bondar. I don't really know either of them, so we skip that. Manel Cape or Cape is supposed to be a very tough fighter. We know Alexander Pantoja is a very tough fighter. He's only a slight favorite over Cape, so I think Cape or Cape is a very, very tough guy. I think they both have really good records. Pantoja much more the proven factor, but I think this guy Cape is absolutely for real. So I would think Pantoja, but I'd have to look more into it, and I think that should be an exciting fight. Seems to be really low down on the card, and I know that could change, but as of now, it looks like that's one of the early prelims, or just starting the basic prelims. Anyway, Devonte Smith was on our show about 1.5 years ago, and he was on a good track, having won his first UFC fight, or maybe 2. He went up against our friend Kama, the Death Star Worthy, and got caught about 1.5 years ago, and has been out of action since then. And so this is the return of Devonte Smith. He is a slight dog.
Barely.
Barely.
Yeah.
Even money mostly in most books. And so we'll be cheering for Devonte. Maybe get him back on the show to talk about that fight if possible before it. And I think that should be in Las Vegas too. Yep, in the Apex in Las Vegas. And then we have Arce, yeah, Julio Arce, Julio Arce against Timur Valiev. They both fought a bit, and then they've got some reputation, but let's pass over that for now. Well, you know what? We may have more time on our hands than we were planning on.
It's looking like we have, unfortunately.
So let's go. I might as well break
bummed.
the. Well, I know that Miranda made it for her first appointment with us about 2 months ago, and we did verify with her yesterday and today, and then she said we're all good. So something must have come up or something's wrong, but hopefully she'll see our messages. Did you send one on Skype also?
Oh, of course.
Okay, good. And I sent one in the method that we have to connect with her. Okay, so Julio Arce against Timur Valiev. Why don't we take a look at their files real quick, Doc? So Julio Arce, fighting out of Team Tiger Schulman, good school, tough guys over there. And that is where Jimmy Rivera fights out of as well. And he has a good record, only 2 losses. So that makes him 3-2 in the UFC. He came in and beat Dan Ige about 3 years ago. That's a big win. Then came in and subbed Daniel Tamer. did lose a tough split decision to Shimon Moraes, who is a beast. Came back and beat Julian Erosa, stopping him, and then did lose a split close decision to Hakeem Dawodu, who is a beast. So look at that, Doc. He could still be undefeated. Yeah, I mean, look at that. Except for 2 split decisions, Arce could be like undefeated and on this killer streak. Now, we have his opponent, Timur Valiev, in his UFC debut. He fought Trevin Jones. I believe he did beat him, and it was overturned by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. So someone popped hot for substances. I believe it would have to be in that case. And I think since I thought he had won, maybe it was him. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I could very well be. I forget whether he won that fight or Trevin Jones. But that's a no contest. So he was coming from the PFL and was looking really good as a tough guy. Where does he fight out of? He fights out of his opponent there. He fights out of Dag fighter Jackson Wink. So he's from Dagestan. He's out of Jackson Wink. What's his record? 10-2, is that? 16-2. Wow. And he's a really tough guy too. So this should be a really, really good fight.
It'll be a really good one, a really close one, maybe.
Yeah,
I actually don't think it's going to be close. I think this is going to be Julio
Arce. I think so too. Although, man, these Dagestanis are beasts, man. No one smashes them. They can get beat, but they usually don't get subbed or smashed. They'll either win or they'll barely lose, so it should be a good fight. All right, next is an interesting fight. Macy Chesson, who's been on our show about 3 or 4 times in the past few years, although not recently, but Marion Renault, one of the few female fighters over 40. Let's take a look at their records there. Wow, they have that way down there. It's all different places and different reference sites. 43 years old now. Wow. So Marion Renault is coming off of 3 losses. She lost to Kat Zingano 2.5 years ago. No shame in that. She did lose to Yana Kunitskaya 2 years ago, and then had another 3rd recent loss against Raquel Pennington, going the decision with all 3 very tough women after having a few good wins. She's 43 years old. On the flip side of it, Macy Chesson, I don't think Macy's even 30 yet. Take a look. Let's see Macy. Excuse me, allergies. Macy's 29 years old, is 6-1, coming off a really good win over Shauna Young, and her only loss against Lena Landsberg, I think, over in Sweden or in Norway. That fight was, I think. They both haven't fought for a little while, although I think maybe Macy's had a longer time off than Marion. Let's see, Macy's last fight was February 15th of 20. Okay, so 11 months. So that really isn't that long. And how about Marion? Marion's last fight, I think, is around the same time. Wasn't it early 20 or late 19? Let me see. Her last fight.
It was more recent than that.
June. Yeah. Okay. So 11 months off for Macy and only about 7 months off for Marion. Marion's back is against the wall at 43 years old and with 3 losses in a row. I think she's kind of going to need to beat Macy Chesson. They may let her go, although she is a super charismatic fighter. Sick jiu-jitsu. Macy's the taller, longer woman. She's the younger, faster, stronger woman. She likes her submission game, though. And I think she's maybe a purple belt, maybe brown, whereas Marion is a good jiu-jitsu black belt. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think that what would be smart with Macy, if she were to just try to touch her up and start picking her apart on the feet. I think that Macy is tough to take down and maybe the better wrestler of the two. And if that's the case, she should probably use her wrestling to stay on the feet. But it would be interesting to see if they got on the ground. I think if Macy is on top, she's safe. But I think her being on the bottom of Marion Renault is not something that I think she wants to do. And the favorite 2-1 is Macy. I think Macy does win that.
Yeah, I think so too. Listen, she's a tough cookie going up against a notoriously tough cookie as well. But Macy's, listen, she's a little lankier, and I think she is going to be able to keep it on the feet and not have to have it go to the ground. So I really don't see this working in Marion Renault's favor at all.
No, it would be tough. Macy would literally have to slip on a banana peel and have Marion get on top of her and submit her right away. But as a black belt, it could happen, but I doubt it. But love to see the older fighters do well, and but I don't think that'll happen in this case. Now we go on to Michael Johnson, Clay Guida. That's an interesting fight, Doc. These are both legends. They're both probably getting close to 40, I'd imagine. Let's take a look.
Oh yeah.
Clay Guida, 39. How much closer to 40 can you get than 39? Michael Johnson is 34, so he really isn't that close to 40. I think Michael Johnson started younger than Clay, but Clay has fought for longer. They're both absolute veterans, man. Both of these guys have fought at least a dozen fights. What am I saying? Clay has fought probably 25 fights in the UFC, and Michael has fought maybe 15. Let's take a look at the last few. Clay's last few fights.
This is Clay.
Yeah, he's 35-20, 55 fights. His last few fights. Now, getting submitted by Charles Oliveira, there is no shame to that because he's submitting absolutely everyone and may continue to do that all the way to the lightweight title. BJ Penn was kind of washed up when Clay fought him, but Clay did beat him. Jim Miller did choke Clay unconscious. There's no shame in that. Jim is a really, really good longtime black belt. And then the King, Bobby Green, did go the decision with Clay Guida. Clay did beat Joe Lozon in 17, as well as Eric Koch. Not a lot of winning, but not all losing lately for the Carpenter. And then if we take a look at his opponent, Michael Johnson is the taller fighter and the younger fighter by 5 years. Michael Johnson is, coming off 3 losses in a row. He did beat Andre Touchy-Feely and Artem Lobov before Artem moved on to Bare Knuckles Fighting Championship. He did lose to our friend Josh Emmett by KO, but who doesn't? All right.
Who doesn't? I love that.
He did. Yep. He did lose to Stephen Ray from England by majority decision, and then he did get Achilles locked by Thiago Moises, who's a very tough fighter. I remember Boss Rutan always say, "Don't tap to an Achilles lock. Don't tap to a calf slicer. That's not damaging." I don't want to do my crappy Dutch impression, but
right.
It's not damaging. He would say, but it sure as hell is painful, and it'll leave a huge bruise not tapping out to these submissions that are not joint locks. And the pain can be absolutely terrible, and especially if you have that muscle's tighter than it is for other people. So I'm not going to be the one to say don't tap to that, because I have a few times, but it's not an injury type of submission, and a lot of guys won't tap. I guess Boss wouldn't tap to that, but nevertheless, if it's put on, it can feel like your calf is going to explode like a balloon, and you don't like that feeling. No one would. But anyway, bottom line is that Michael Johnson is expected to win this fight, 2.5 to 1 favorite. I don't know what Clay Guida is going to do here, but he always shows up.
Man, I'm sorry, Clay. Clay, you're kind of making me think along the lines of Cerrone here. It's time
to hang him out. Well, if he loses in this fight, or maybe even if he wins, maybe that's his plan, because he's such a charismatic, tough guy. He always was out there to compete. I think he would have liked it had he got even closer to a title shot, which he never did. He would crack, I think, the top 5 early on, maybe, or get close to it, but just not quite get over that hump. But then most people didn't. But now it's not even. We're not even talking a ranked fight. But you know what? Michael wouldn't even be in the top 20, but maybe close. Anyway, bottom line is this would be a great win if Clay could get it, but it's a long shot, and we'll see what happens. But I got Michael Johnson here.
I'm not picking the dog on this one. I'm telling you that.
No, definitely. Are we seeing anything?
I'm picking the dog on the next fight.
Yeah,
though.
we'll take. Yeah, I think you're right. We're not seeing any more activity with Miranda, are we?
No, we aren't. Nope.
So,
no, man, there's not really enough time at this point to try and chase her down and make
really
it happen. If she's not going to.
Yeah. All respect to Miranda. Something must have happened, because I verified with her actually yesterday and today after scheduling her a week ago and verifying. And she came on last time and everything went well. Something must have gone on, and I'm sure she apologizes to our audience. And I would bet maybe we could even get her on next week. We'll give her the chance for that. But anyway, the next fight is going to be an absolute barn burner, as the Europeans will say, a cracker. this fight will be a cracker. And we're talking against the streaking Beneil Dariush out of King's MMA in Southern California under the tutelage of the great Rafael Cordeiro, along with Chutabox from Curitiba, Brazil, going up against the Brazilian Diego Ferreira. Some people know him as Carlos Diego Ferreira, fighting out of Fortis MMA under coach Saif Saud. Slight favorite is Diego Ferreira. Yeah, I got the dog here. We have not ever talked to Diego. We've spoken on several occasions with Beneil. He is an amazing guy, just a big-hearted guy. He's got that charity and orphanage, or care for kids that he's given a lot of his earnings to help provide. And he's
how
just
do you think he's going to take it on this one?
Oh man, this is like two Terminators facing each other. Basically, sorry again for the allergies here. Basically, these guys don't have any quit in them. They're both dogs. They're going to keep on digging in and digging in and digging in. Beneil an inch taller, although sometimes that's off. They could very well be eye to eye. Beneil did beat Diego 5 years ago. And now Beneil is 31 and Diego is 36. Beneil won, I think, when he had just turned 26. And Diego was the age that Beneil is now. Both of them have improved. At that time, they were winning 2, losing 1, so on and so forth. Now they're on a streak. Beneil, I think, on a 5-fight win streak, and Diego on a 6-fight win streak. Beneil right in his prime. Diego a little bit past his prime, but not much, and he's been killing it. I can't wait to see this fight. I just
got a message, Colin. Let's hit her up.
Let's do it. Yep,
let's do it. A few minutes.
Anyway, Beneil, it's gonna be. I think Beneil might catch him and knock him out, but it's hard to imagine anyone doing that to Diego Ferreira. Maybe just beat him on points. That's gonna be such a great fight. All right, we're doing the Skype dance.
It should be. It's not seeming to work all of a sudden.
No problem. We'll call you now. Oh, Miranda, you there?
No, that's fine.
Hey, Miranda, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes. So sorry about that.
No problem. I'm sure it's craziness is going on because you are training for a fight, so apology accepted, and I understand completely. Let me give you a proper introduction here. Ladies and gentlemen, so happy to have this next fighter back on the show. We had her before her UFC debut, and we're having her again shortly before her fight. I think we're talking 10 days away. We are so excited and grateful to the woman they call Fear the Maverick, Miranda Maverick. Thanks so much for jumping on back with us. How is training going? And then let us know the day that you're fighting, the location, and the opponent.
Okay, February 13th against Jillian Robertson in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm really excited about it. Today was 2 different sets of training times, but about 5 different actual practices. Did pad work with my coach, did some cardio work right after that. And then this afternoon's training session, I went in, did some technique for Muay Thai, did a little bit of touch sparring, and then did some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then some MMA after with one of my coaches. So today was a busy day. Just got back from training and ate a little something, and sorry about jumping on a little late.
Understood. Well, I appreciate that a lot. Apology accepted, and definitely, you got to train hard. It makes sense. We appreciate you fitting us into your schedule. Your fight then is 17 days away, so you're 2.5 weeks out. It's going to be in Las Vegas. Your first UFC fight, that was also at the Apex in Las Vegas, right?
My actual first UFC fight was in Abu Dhabi on 254 with Khabib versus Gaethje.
That's right. And so this will be your first at the Apex in Las Vegas. Won't have to be any long plane ride, although I think as a youngster that you are at 23, plane ride probably didn't bother you too much, or did it?
The ride itself was not exhausting. No, it was just being gone for so long. School was kind of hard to keep up with over there, especially with the time zone difference. And of course, with my coaches having like other jobs and, family back here, it was a little bit more difficult. And I also didn't get to have my dad in my corner because of passport issues. So that part was hard too. Now he has his passport, so that wouldn't have been a worry. But it is kind of handy that it's in Vegas, just get it done with sooner, be able to get back into my routine, be able to focus on school and training at the same time.
Absolutely. I'm glad to hear that better situation. So much to talk to you about. We've got 10 minutes and I will definitely get it all. And I'm going to maybe throw you some rapid fire questions and maybe give me some like 30-second answers back, or more longer if it merits that. Okay. So I have been following the sport, I think maybe you might remember, ever since the beginning. I'm like at least twice your age, let's say. And so I'm an old guy, longtime martial artist, following it from the beginning. Got a lot of friends who I've trained jiu-jitsu with, and and a lot of friends that wrestle, a lot of friends that have been following MMA for many years. So I called up two of them, and I said, "Let me ask you guys something." I said, "You guys saw my guest Miranda Maverick on the show," and they said, yeah, cool girl. And I said, "Yeah, she is." I said, "I believe in her a lot. She's amazing, and she's here to kick ass and take names. She's not goofing around, and she's got a lot of potential and looked great in her first fight." And I said, "What would you guys think about her next fight coming up, about opponents?" And they said, "I don't know, maybe someone just outside the top 20 maybe." And I said, "Well, how about Jillian Robertson?" And they both said, "What the heck?" They said, how are they, what? Who made that matchup? They're giving they must really believe in Miranda Maverick here. And Miranda Maverick's management must really believe in Miranda Maverick. What was your thought when you heard that fight? I'm not saying that that's not a fight you can win, and I'm sure you believe it is, and I'm sure it is a fight you can win, and it's not like saying you're fighting Valentina Shevchenko tomorrow, but this is an opponent that's going on her 9th fight in the UFC. You'll be going on your 2nd fight. She's had some really good wins. What was your thought? I have a feeling you were probably smiling or happy. Did it surprise you? How did that work out? Is that something your camp had to think about a little bit? Because that really looks like an unusual move that the UFC pretty much said, "Man, this girl's a killer. Let's just jump her about 8 spots for her next opponent." Tell us about that.
Actually, the first time I got the offer was less than a 20-day notice, I believe it was. I unfortunately, actually, it might have been less than that. I think it was like 2 weeks or something like that. 2-week notice, something like that, against Jillian Robertson. The only reason I said no at that point, to be honest, was, well, I guess there were 2 reasons, but they all centered around school. I had a final December 18th, and the fight offered to me, I believe, was December 19th at the time. And I was not able to take it because I had a final on the 18th, and it was a proctored exam in person. So there was no way I could make that one. We tried to rebook it for a couple weekends later. That didn't work out for her, and another opponent ended up taking the fight. Obviously, that was Talia Santos. She lost that fight.
Yeah.
Then my management and everybody contacted her again to have another fight in early January. That didn't work out. It was too short a notice for her, even though she had agreed to being able to be open for short notice. Wanted to get that, I would say, a win back underneath her belt. So we both kind of just talked about it, and management talked back and forth, and luckily we were able to get this fight for February 13th. So it's kind of been in the works. Like, her name's been mentioned several times throughout the past couple months. And I think it's a great matchup, really. Like, as far as avenues to win, I feel like I have many more than she does. And I don't think experience is an issue. Like, yes, she might have fought in the UFC more than me. She may be a couple years older than me, but if anything, I almost see it as an advantage. I'm coming in here with fresh new things that she's not ready for. I had tough competition within Invicta, and I do look at every fight as my hardest fight to date, and Jillian is no different. I think she's a very tough opponent. I respect her, and she has a high-level grappling game especially. And I'm going into that fight with the mindset of it being my hardest fight, but also trying to be the best version of myself, like I try to do every single time that I step into the cage with new weapons in my tool belt. So I'm excited about this fight, ready to go in there and just show the best that I can be in every avenue.
Absolutely. Well said. Did you have a chance to watch her last and most recent competition, which was not an MMA fight?
I did get to watch that, yes, against Pearl Gonzalez, and interestingly, since that was a fight that I had in 2020, February of 2020, it was nice to kind of see that and be able to kind of compare my own grappling style, grappling skills with hers.
Yeah, that was definitely interesting. And I think what would be interesting is to hear Pearl Gonzalez's thoughts. Because she will be the only woman that will have faced both of you. So I'm going to actually see if I can arrange that in the next couple of weeks. I know we had Pearl on a couple of years ago, right?
Try to listen to that one.
It would be interesting. Although, let me ask you this as a fighter. Obviously, I wouldn't just say to her, can you come on the show to talk about Miranda Maverick versus Jillian Robertson? But do you think that requesting something like that would be disrespectful of her? I mean, obviously I would say we can talk about her as well, but I don't want to like piss off a fighter or feel like I'm disrespecting them. But if I were to say, let's talk about your fight. She actually did a combat jiu-jitsu fight, which is really interesting. And then I'd love to get your opinion on Miranda Maverick versus Jillian Robertson. Do you think that would be cool enough, or do you think she might kind of feel like screw that guy?
Sure. Doesn't strike me as a person who really seems to care about the values within like the respect category of / Jillian. I don't think she might, especially if it was in her benefit. I don't know if she'd go as far to like message me about Jillian or Jillian about me, but you never know about people. I really don't know. I've never really been close with Pearl at all.
Makes sense. But it sure would be an interesting fight. Well, we only got a couple minutes left, so this is going to be a great fight. I'm looking forward to you going in there. We've had Jillian on several times. I believe in both of you, but I will say I'm really excited about you and your potential. I know you're a Midwesterner like myself and my co-host here and producer, Dr. Adam Roorda, and I think at 23 you're killing it. I think Macy Barber is probably screaming, that was supposed to be me. I'm supposed to be the one that's here. So she's,
same time, Macy's above me on the card. She's kind of already made her place there. So in technical terms, she's already ahead of me on that road. So she's doing pretty well herself, but I wouldn't doubt if we see each other in the cage pretty soon as well.
That would be really interesting. Well, I think you're going to do really well. I'm really excited to see you kill it. I definitely think that with a win over Jillian Robertson, those top 5 women are going to start saying, who the hell is this? Miranda Maverick? We better see what's up with her. So I think that, and I'd be curious to see if you send some kind of a message with the after interview to the other people in the top 5. Do you have anything in mind, or is it a secret, or would you figure you're not going to do it?
5, but I definitely assume that I'd be getting a top 15 opponent or so. If I win this fight, not if. And I have some names that I definitely want to call out. Honestly, up to the top 3, I feel like the flyweight division right now is just kind of a crapshoot for whoever becomes top 10, top 15. One girl wins, the next one becomes different rankings. One girl loses. The rankings just change constantly. It's very inconsistent right now just because it's such a new class still. And I'm hoping it gets not only more solidified, but that new competition, like me coming up the ranks and a bunch of the other younger girls are going to be coming in and filling those spots a little bit more solidly over the next couple of years, is my guess.
Absolutely. I would think so too. Well, you have a great head on your shoulders. You've got great maturity for 23. You got that Midwest farm girl power I know we talked about. And I'm looking forward to you just really showing what you can do and making a whole bunch of new fans. So go do it. Grab that W. Can't wait to see you make it happen on February 13th.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Have a great night. And that was Miranda Fear the Maverick. Very cool woman, Dr. Adam Roorda. I knew she was a responsible type responsible, not irresponsible, type person.
Absolute sure to go ahead and get on here and making it happen. Things happen. We get it.
Absolutely. And she's training to just fight 2.5 weeks away. And so big respect to Miranda. Love for her to come on. She's a tough girl. She's just intense. You can feel that intensity even through the Skype. And she's just pleasant and nice, but she just, you don't mess with
making sure to make an appearance is something that we truly appreciate.
Yes.
Not just of our guests, but also all you out there. Seriously, thank you so much. Head on over to our social media and give us a like on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's all at MMA Power Hour. It's real easy to find us. We're the only ones with this logo. I want to say thank you, Colin, for another amazing episode. Thank you, guys. For now, I'm tapping out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Adam Roorda, for everything you do, man. It's amazing making the set look this good. Everything is great. Sound, once in a while, can have a problem if the guest has an issue with their Skype. And so with everything that Dr. Adam Roorda has control over, it's amazing, smooth as silk, and thank you so much for that, Doc. It's not that easy to make an old guy like me sometimes look as good as I do, and yeah, I wouldn't if it weren't for Dr. Adam Roorda's contribution. So in order of appearance, thank you so much to Brandon the Truth Vera. Big respect to you, brother. One championship heavyweight champion. Watch for him coming up. His next fight's just signed, and information will come out shortly. Next, we had Dr. Aliffe, Karyem. I think I'm mispronouncing it again. My mind's all flustered, and this was a pre-recorded segment from a different time. So Dr. Aliffe is what he deserves to be known as, with respect, and a great and honest man with integrity, and the CBDA is some great stuff. And Miranda, Fear the Maverick. Thank you so much, Miranda. I'm so